Today on Locked On Rockies, I asked you, the Rockies fans, to let me know some things that would get you pumped up for 2025. We dive into some of those answers and ask some hypotheticals on today's episode.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 23rd day of October in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot, because that is what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies podcast YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show and be the stars of the show, because that's what we're doing today. We're reading a bunch of listener comments about getting pumped up for next year. Because again, I'm not going to ignore the bad things about the Colorado Rockies. We just got a lot of podcasting to do from here until the season starts, so we're not going to always be doom and gloom. We're going to try to be hopeful. We're going to try to trust the plan, trust in the process here, and see if there is a reason to believe in all, some of the smoke that we're seeing from and some of the hype that we're hearing from the front office. So I wanted to know what would make Rockies fans excited in 2025. And we got some comments. We're going to dive into that and more on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So I put out the call there, and please continue. Let me know in the comments section. Let me know what would be cool for you to see in 2025. What would excite you? And coming up later in the week, we're going to talk about favorite Rockies moments from 2024. So if you have favorite Rockies moments, if you have moments that have stuck with you from the season, and I'm focusing on 2024 for now. We'll have plenty of time to go bigger picture, but if you have a favorite Rockies moment, let me know. But let's dive into some of the listener comments, because we're going to talk about some other ones as well here from some other episodes. But let's start here from Jim. Jim says, I think I already answered the question in the last video. Somewhat less strikeouts and not losing in the ninth inning would go a long way for me. One other thing, breaking into 70-plus wins would also help as a step in the right direction toward more wins. To borrow from Trump, let's make the Colorado Rockies great again. If in the context of the way you look at it here, if the Rockies do end up, and Jim brought up a good point in a previous, as he mentioned in the previous thing, Jim did the research here and said the Rockies lost 8 games when they were ahead in the ninth inning. That would make the team 69-93. So in general, if that's, I think obviously a huge step in the right direction, right? If the Rockies closing games, winning games that they have in the ninth inning, if they are better on the bullpen side, that's the type of stuff you start to believe in. You would believe there's more of a pulse with the Rockies if they finish with that 69 record, a 69 win record, as opposed to 61 wins this year. That the difference in the big grand scheme of things and playoffs isn't much between 8 games. But the difference between back-to-back 100-loss seasons, all the negative history, there is so much negative connotation with 2024 performance and statistic and record-wise that if you were able to, because one, if you were better in the 8th inning, you prevent a bunch of the other history there too, and XYZ. But it mostly starts with avoiding that back-to-back 100-loss seasons, and it does make you feel a little bit better. Losing 100 games is a lot, and it's very difficult to do. And the Rockies had to really, really go out of their way to lose it, and blowing those leads in the 8th and a million other reasons. But my point is, if they do hit that 70 mark, you're still not completely satisfied as a Rockies fan. It's still another season of mostly losing baseball. But you do sit there and you say that's a 9-win improvement from last year. bigger than 2. But the real question is, and there's some people that make I believe we have a comment that follows up in a similar thing, is can the Rockies make the Royals jump, the Orioles jump, the Rangers jump, the Diamondbacks jump? All of these teams that hit rock bottom and then ricocheted right off of it and launched themselves back up into the playoff picture, into wild card, into World Series appearances, into World Series wins. If you're in the case of the Texas Rangers, that's the big thing. Because to be totally honest, even with, I'm not going to be overly pumped about a 70-win season. And it's just because, okay, it's the increments of going up are small. But if the Rockies, if they find themselves in the mid 70s, and this all hypothetical, folks, I understand where we're at. But I'm just saying, if the team somehow goes on a heater, beats bad teams, plays better on the road, makes Coors Field a pain, and Nolan Jones comes back, people take steps forward. Say the Rockies find themselves finishing the season with 75 wins. That's a moment where you sit there and you say, all right, there needs to be a serious look at what is working and what isn't working, and we need to invest in that. That's when the team really needs to start buying into the investing things. Because are we really going to have a totally, fully clear, yes, these are the players and the things that we need to stick with next season if we finish 65 wins? There, again, it might just further solidify the Tovar and the Doyle, and Tolia gets more comfortable and stuff, and say they cut down on the strikeouts a little bit, sure. But are we going to sit here and say, man, the Rockies are really crushing it on this rebuild if the increase in wins is only +2, +3? I think the Rockies need to make a jump of 10 wins to start really showing us that things are getting better. We have to see signs of the Rockies getting better next year, even with the context of it probably being the same team. But if the bullpen's better, you are already looking at a situation where the Rockies could add 8 wins to their win-loss total. If the Rockies don't trail historically to start the season in 30 plus games. I mean, if the historically bad doesn't happen for the Rockies again, then they should be in better shape. But again, can we count on improvement? Can we count on this team getting better? Can we count on the bad not happening again? Jury's still out on that one, I think. But thank you, Jim. Appreciate the comment here to start things off. Let's see. RMK says, I think what will build hype is seeing a prospect really break out. Maybe it's Beck, maybe it's Amador or Veen, but seeing one prospect from the current farm system really have a strong season would validate that feeling that there is something worth waiting for this crop of players. I think that list is a really good one, but I want to add one more because I think Veen is the sleeper one on that. I think we kind of got a little taste of good of a good stretch of Beck in some portions. I know it didn't stay consistent for his whole time up there. I think if you move Brendan Rodgers and Amador comes up and finds success, and I'm talking Brenton Doyle success first year, where maybe the bat isn't it, but we love the defense. We're really impressed with these things. We're really impressed when he does get on base, he can steal. Maybe there's XYZ as he adjusts to being a major league hitter. I think that would definitely really pump people up. But I think what would pump people up the most is Dollander. I think if you call Chase Dollander up in the second half of the season and he comes up and he's successful, especially at home, and goes on a stretch where he could win win at home, goes on the road and wins another, and kind of builds a 5 solid start stretch where it's a nice little mix of home and away. I think that's what moves the needle for fans that are looking for that player from the next class. I think I think when you're talking building hype moment, Rockies dope pitching process. Rockies have a pitcher that is handling Coors Field and the road. Rockies have a guy that's striking out 9 batters a game. Again, hypotheticals, just hyping it up. Perfect scenario there type of situation. I think that's what's a game changer for people. I think why fans were able to buy into the playoff teams was because Arenado and Cargo and Story and the offense, they had you sold. And Chuck, of course. They had you sold on what they could do. But the question was always pitching. But then you were able to say Kyle Freeland, German Marquez. I mean, when those guys were dealing, when those guys were helping the Rockies get to the playoffs, I'd argue that people were more excited about the Rockies having a rotation. Maybe, again, and people certainly weren't claiming it's the best ever, and I know there was a lot of criticisms of especially Freeland and John Gray. But my point is, I think good pitching that's the thing that people, because if you say the Rockies have good pitching, they won't believe you. You know what I mean? No, if you go and you say the Rockies have a dope pitching prospect, the Rockies have the next best pitcher, and people won't believe you. Because, again, it's a moment where if they can find a person that can be dominant on both planes, like German Marquez has shown at points, not always. If they can find a consistent pitcher that's dominant, and if Chase Dollander is that, I think that's the biggest game changer prospect-wise. I think that's the situation. I think that's what builds hype. I think Rockies pitching prospects, the bullpen, maybe you could throw that in there too, because who wasn't enjoying the bullpen more in the last part of the season? Watching the young guys go out there and go in big situations and get big outs, go on a stretch where they were the best bullpen in baseball for a bit, or one of the best bullpens in baseball for a couple of weeks there. That stuff matters. I think that's a big needle mover for Rockies fans. All right, we got more comments to get to here, so don't go anywhere, but we got to take a quick break. So, more how to build hype for the Colorado Rockies coming up in segment number 2. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel has got you covered for all your sports book action. If you're looking to get some parlays, you're looking to get some futures, you're looking to get in on the action because the sports are here. Basketball, hockey, baseball, World Series, football's in full swing. There is so much to see on the FanDuel app. You can go in and maybe you're feeling good. Take the Nuggets money line. Take the Nuggets money line on the opening night here for them and root on them as you check in the middle of the game. You can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel.com. Go check out all the action for yourself and see why America's #1 sportsbook is indeed FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show just like you all are on today's episode. Shout-outs to you. Shout-outs to my everydayers out there, and shout-outs to Locked On MLB, a great pod for your second listen of the day. Okay. So we are reading YouTube comments on what would hype folks up for the Colorado Rockies, and we continue with the Nerd Herd. As a relatively new baseball fan, for the last 2 years, I see my other favorite team, the Royals, go from a win-loss of 56 to 106 to 86 and 76. It makes me wonder what the Rockies could do to have something similar happen. Maybe promoting young talent, but I'm not too sure. And I do remember you mentioning that the Rockies head office said that they're expecting a season that is similar to 2024, which is very discouraging for a new fan who hasn't seen the Rockies have a winning season. So that's, I think we talked a lot about that jump in record there. But let's just go back to the scale. of what we're talking about, the swing, the change for the Royals. That's plus 30. Plus 30. That's massive. And you have to take into consideration, though, that it's a different division. It's a different type of situation. But we can't just sit here as Rockies fans and just lean on that as excuses. Arizona bounced back and got in the mix of it after being terrible. They got to the World Series. They handled business against their NL West rivals. They got it done. The Padres have have continued to maintain relevancy in the NL West while bouncing back, having down years, then bouncing back, up and down. I know they haven't gotten it done yet, but you can at least sit there and see what they're doing and buy into what they're doing. This is the situation. This is a moment for the Rockies. 2025 is an opportunity to really show that this team is growing and developing into something great. Because we can't sit here and say the Rockies have had a great farm system forever. We can't sit here and talk about the farm system of the Colorado Rockies the same way that the Orioles and the Rays and these other farm systems get talked about, and the longevity and the depth of those farm systems. The Rockies, if they are creating a situation where they really believe in these guys, they have to be ready to buy in and buy around to beef up this team and help it make the jump. Because the situation that we're facing is a similar Rockies team going into next year with a decrease in payroll. So what that means is, why should we believe this team isn't going to make a plus 30 jump? This team, if it's going to be on the same level, we have to see a bunch of development. We have to see steps forward from a lot of players, or else it's going to be a plus. It might not even be a plus anything. Could be a minus. There's a lot of hope holding on to this rotation returning to a version we haven't seen in a few years. I just am not sure if that's going to be enough to help the Rockies take a big enough jump. And again, that the comparison is tough, but why can other teams do it and the Rockies can't? That shouldn't be the Rockies should be the next team able to do this. The Rockies should be the next team that's prepared to do this, to be the team that makes the big jump, to be the team that turns heads, to be the team that goes plus 30 on wins one season to the next, not plus 1 or 2, I think, maybe. The point is, the moves the Rockies can make, it's not just going to come from within. The Rockies cannot make the jumps that these other teams make without buying into it. But I don't necessarily think you need to make that move right away. If you're able to, the moves and the thought and the considered moves that the Rockies are making to shed payroll, a Rodgers trade, a Gomber trade, a Quantrill trade, it's going to free you up to do something, but it's not going to free you up to do a huge thing. But it could add a bat that could be a power bat that the Rockies desperately need. That could be something that helps move it closer to that. But unfortunately, I think for your next season of Rockies fandom, you're going to have a similar experience. I hope the blown games at the end aren't nearly as bad. And I hope the offense does take steps forward. But until that team is a month through the season and they're not leading the league in strikeouts and not setting a historic pace with strikeouts and all that stuff and kind of a million other things, I'm not holding out hope that 2025 is drastically different than 2024. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen, but we'll see. But if to build your courage back up, focus on the fun, young guys. Focus on the fact that there could be some really good breakouts here from some young Rockies players. Focus on the fact that Nolan Jones is going to have another opportunity here to bounce back. Hopefully, stays healthy, and he's the guy that we know can change the game. And we'll go from there. How about that? All right, we got an eternal optimist to finish out the show for our last comment for the hyping up the Rockies fans. We will do that coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible. That includes PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports spot. Why? Because they got 10 million active members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all because all you do is you pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. More hits, more walks, more home runs, more strikeouts. You pick more or less on the players, and then you just put you against the numbers. PrizePicks puts its members first, so when you hit on your PrizePicks, withdrawals are fast, safe, secure, and when they all hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes, and you can check out all the other 10 million users enjoying PrizePicks right now. Head on over to the PrizePicks app and download the app if you haven't, and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is a $50 instant bonus after you play your first $5 lineup on PrizePicks. You can check it out for yourself when you use the code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks. PrizePicks, run your game. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk here as we're talking what's going to hype you up, what's going to pump you up, what's going to get you ready to root for your Roccos next year. There's a lot of things, I'm sure. I know there's a lot of excited Rockies fans still out there. It's a little tough to talk about things right now. I understand. But that's why Matthew here has some optimism for us. First of all, I'm already hyped about 2025. I'm an eternal optimist and an OG Rockies fan from the beginning. What would get me excited isn't what they do, it's what they don't do. Don't bring in any veteran free agents. Believe in the process and play the young kids. I want to see Fernandez, Veen, Amador, Dollander, Sullivan, Palmquist. I want to see those guys on the squad at some point in 2025. All right. I like it. I like the full belief. I like just going full youth movement. I'm with you. If you're slashing payroll, if you're not making big changes, if you're just sticking with it and seeing what the guys are going to go through, that's fine. I can get behind that. What I will push back on, I still think they need to add a bat. I don't think the Rockies can afford to go through this. The Rockies can't. It doesn't matter rebuilding or not. The Rockies cannot be an anemic offense. The Rockies have to have offense as a strength. And because I believe in Tovar and Doyle as offensive contributors, I believe in the power of Michael Toglia, and I believe that Nolan Jones, when healthy, when in the right space, when kind of back in action, I believe in their offensive abilities. But I can't sit here and confidently say that we're trotting out Ryan McMahon in the 3-hole and the 4-hole every night is going to excite me. I can't sit here and say that I'm going to rely on Chris Bryant to come back and be healthy and be a significant contributor on offense. I'm not going to – I can't sit here and be excited if Jacob Stallings is one of the Rockies' biggest offensive threats. So my point is I really do think somebody that is a good hitter, a consistent hitter that can hit – for extra bases, whether it, power, and I'm talking a doubles type guy, a guy that can hit the ball in the gap, hit that well, that has that home run pop, that power potential, that doesn't strike out a lot, you're going to be all right. That's a good, solid ad. But that's just a type of player that doesn't fit, that's not going to fit specifically every available free agent and what's available for the Rockies. Because if you do add a bat, where are they playing? Right? I mean, it could be that. It could be right field. Is right field going to be a spot for the young prospects? Or is right field going to be a spot for the veteran outfielder? the veteran bat. And I'm not going to be surprised if right now the plan might not be to there has been rumblings. I believe Saunders mentioned that or someone has mentioned that the Rockies are looking for a bat. But would it surprise me if the plan for beefing up the offense and juicing up the offense next year is hoping that KB's healthy? No, not that much. I wouldn't be shocked to hear if that was the Rockies' plan. Is to hope for Chris Bryant to be a version of Chris Bryant. But the problem is with Chris Bryant, when he's been on the field, is the huge dip in power. I can't have Chris Bryant batting in the top of the order when all he does is hit little softly hit liners for singles into the shallow outfield. If Chris Bryant is batting at an elite level like he has in the past, not for the Rockies, different story. But I can't, again, and say they don't move Brendan Rodgers. Am I fully sold on the offense of Brendan Rodgers? Not in the first month and a half of the season. I'm not. Really, probably not until late June am I confident in Brendan Rodgers' offense. There's no part of it that really just makes you feel like they're going to break out in a game of offense. There's nothing about the team as is that really makes you think, man, this team's got it when it comes to offense. There are, of course, exceptions. There are, of course, things that we've talked about to be excited by. But my point is, I just don't think if you do shed that payroll, if you do open up a situation for yourself, I think it'd be better to probably to try to add the bat. It's just the question of where are they going to play? Because can we really just count on all these young guys just going through it next year? Sure, it's reps, absolutely. But it's also a tough division with tough pitchers. I don't know. But I appreciate the optimism. I appreciate the being pumped up. I appreciate not giving up, like all of our Rockies fans out there. Folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. You can continue to let me know what's going to hype you up for 2025 so I can keep reading them on the show by commenting on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Let me know what's on your mind when it comes to Colorado Rockies, and thank you so much again for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB, and of course, if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, all available to you as well. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.